Hello and welcome. My name is Coach Pav, and today I'm going to be discussing how being lazy will make you a faster cyclist. Almost everybody will have some kind of weird little story, anecdote, rhetoric, whatever about inactivity. We've all heard it. We've all been shamed into believing that we don't do enough, whether that is by being told to take the stairs instead of the lift or elevator, getting one of those fancy standing desks, or just doing a lot more walking or commuting via a human powered vehicle rather than a car or something like that. But how damaging is that actually to your performance on the bike? I'm going to look into this in more depth across this video or podcast, depending on where you are watching or listening. So we're going to start goal setting. Goal setting is probably the biggest factor in whether you need to be more lazy or not. And what I mean here is that if you are setting yourself a goal so high that is going to be really tough for you to complete, you need to be thinking about your recovery more than anything. If you're just doing a Gran Fondo sportive and it's going to be tough, but you should be able to do it with the right training, the right nutrition, the right prep, getting lucky with a few things, of course, you probably are okay to do a bit more stuff. But when we talk about doing something that is huge, like breaking a world record, Olympics, world national championships, even if you are that interested in, PBs, qualifying for stuff, or of course, if you follow me on social media and a lot of what my clients do, stuff that is so big like Race Across America, you need to give up the whole lie to yourself, or that other people tell you that you need to be doing this extra physical exertion. You just don't. You do enough training in the week. So while I have absolute mad respect for anybody who is not training, is just, wants to be a bit healthier and is going to get a standing desk or going to walk more, it's going to do a lot more stuff, especially maybe, walks, long walks, hikes with family and friends and stuff like that. Absolutely fine. Honestly, that's great. And you could probably fit those in if you're not one of the people that I was just talking about in terms of lofty goal setting. But if you are, you need to be developing that recovery mindset. Recovery mindset is something that I've talked about in a lot of my content before. And honestly, it comes down to one question for me. That one question is something to ask yourself when faced with pretty much every decision. And that is, will the thing that I do next, will it aid my recovery or will it hinder it? And I think that when you start to make sure you are asking that question, and when you really do boil it down to that, I think you're going to start making smarter decisions. And it's absolutely fine to be lazy. If people want to judge you for being lazy, you can show them this. You can show them your Strava, right? I think that you need to keep your eye on the prize, and that is that end goal. But let's just say, for example, you do just want a general performance. Maybe you are doing a Gran Fondo sportive, you're doing some, light racing. It's not something that is needs to control your whole life, but it is something that you do want to improve at. Being a bit more lazy can definitely improve you as a cyclist, and it's for that reason, really. The less that you do off the bike in terms of non-training, so it's exertion that doesn't necessarily translate to performance improvements on the bike, the less of that that you do, the better chance your body has of recovering. And I think that that when you start to instill that as a mindset, I think that you start to realize, actually, there's a load of things that I can knock on the head. So another thing that I talk a lot about this all the time, because it just breaks the convention completely, the convention that we're taught as kids. And that is, you have to be 100% committed to everything that you do. And it's just crap. It's like chasing perfection. You just can't be 100% committed, because as soon as you're not 100% committed, you've almost already failed. Most people can understand that that's not necessarily true, but some people can understand that's not necessarily true. But I actually think that majority of people probably do have a spiral effect where you're not 100% committed if you have go out, take the kids to McDonald's and you have a cheeseburger, a Big Mac or something, and that starts to, you get in this little whirlpool, right? And if you're listening on the podcast, you can't see me, but on the video I'm making a stupid circle. But let's just say you're up here, you're at the top of the whirlpool, and you have a McDonald's. You start to slide down a little bit, right? And then, you're going to have a couple of beers at the weekend with your mates. And then next weekend, wifey wants to go somewhere like on a long hike and have a glass of wine afterwards. And before you know it, you're at the bottom of the pan, right? You're at the bottom of this pan, circling away, where you look back up and you realize, shit, here's what 100% looks like at the top of this whirlpool, and I've slipped all the way down. And then for a lot of people, that's the end. They fall through the gap and they're in the drain, or wherever it is that whirlpool goes. Stupidest analogy ever, I get it. But honestly, the point is, when we set ourselves up for this 100% commitment, we set ourselves up for an instant failure. And I think that has got to be a key takeaway of, and it's got to be a change, I think, in coaching and training in general, is actually having that mindset that for majority of people, 100%, isn't necessary. And if you've got a goal that you think, actually, I do need to be 100% committed to, you might be setting yourself up for a failure, because honestly, it's maybe we're outside of your reach. And that's not to say give up, but that's to say, actually, maybe you need to drop it down a gear. I work with a lot of people who do stuff like Race Across America, and we constantly have to reevaluate whether this is their year. All right, because you've got to get everything right for that. And that's not even 100% committed, because I have guys who've got, young families, wives. They have full-time jobs and they have everything going on. That's not 100% committed. If you're 100% committed, you need to quit your job. You need to quit your family. And please don't go and do that. My point is that when you have these extra commitments, that does take its toll. So if you are sat there at home now watching me, listening to me, you very much may be thinking that it's the end. It's not the end at all. You just need to reevaluate whether the goals are achievable in the time frame that you've set out. And if it really is that confusing for you, reach out, because I will happily have a 15-minute chat for free with you on this. And honestly, you might actually understand that you probably do need help with this. So I think that again, that's a big thing for me, is if you know that you've got these things, like, for example, that you're going to have to commute by bike, you're going to have to walk a bit, you're going to have to do a lot of physical exertion. Does that fit in with what you want to achieve? Or do you need to be thinking a little bit more about what is more possible within your commitment scale? So there are some ways, of course, to combat or to undo some of the damage, and I'm air quoting that if you're on the podcast, that some of these extra exertions will have. I think that when you listen to them, you're going to see that they do come with their own challenges themselves. But I do think that, as well as asking yourself that all-important question of whatever you do next, will it aid or hinder your recovery, I definitely think that you can start to aid yourself and improve your recovery, and make training a lot easier for yourself if you implement some of these things. Now, they are kind of quite extremes. Like the first one, I'm going to say, obviously extra sleep. I'm not advocating that you try and get yourself a little snooze at work, unless of course your boss is on board with that, and you can change your working pattern. But making sure that you get 7 to 8 hours at night as a minimum is obviously the first point to winning with sleep. So I think that making sure you make that as a priority is going to be really crucial. But let's just say you've had to you do quite a physical job, and you're at lunch, and you've been on your feet all day, or maybe you've had to walk a bit for whatever reason. maybe a nap isn't a good choice. But maybe what could be a good choice is just getting your feet elevated slightly. Just slightly elevating your feet to allow your body just to help flush some of the waste products and aid your recovery. Is actually going to be a real good and hopefully a lot more actionable tip there. So I'm definitely keen to make sure that we do focus on that. Of course, nutrition as well. You need to make sure you're flooding your body with the right micronutrients as well as the macronutrients. And a little quick overview of macros, you will be more than likely aware of protein, fats, and carb, which is your fuel as such. Micros are your electrolytes and minerals, which you typically find in plants and in some meat, organ meat particularly. If you're not eating, and they're your oil, we'll call that your oil. So if you could put the best fuel in your engine, but if you've not got any oil in it, you're still going to struggle. And I think that has got to be something that you can focus on as well. So a couple more little actionable tips here, and I think that they kind of fall under the same bracket here, and that is outsourcing and almost carpooling your resources. So I'm sure you've got if you're lucky enough to be able to afford some extra help. Two things that I always loathe to see when my clients have been doing them, especially on a weekend in the summer, is obviously housework, aggressive housework, not necessarily just minor stuff, but stuff that's physically exerting, and gardening. Gardening is potentially the worst one for that. So if you are lucky enough to be in a situation where you can afford a cleaner or a gardener, particularly a gardener, I think that you are going to be giving yourself a real tidy boost there by aiding your recovery and not being kind of hunched over doing all the work or lugging around grass. It's tough work that might not seem it. You might feel a bit tired by the end of the day, but ultimately your recovery will thank me when you thank you when you actually finish, and or you don't finish, you finish your session and you nail your intervals because you're not kind of hanging around from trying to recover from gardening. But of course, understandably, times are tough, and you've got another bike to buy. So a gardener might not be the best. And if you haven't got kids that you can get roped in on this, perhaps you have got a buddy system, almost carpool-like, where you can exchange a weekend every month between a few of you, where you come and you help others, or you do it all yourself and stuff. And that's how it would work for you. You would maybe get 3 weekends in 4 where you can focus on the training, and then that other weekend you go and help your buddies, and maybe you take up a lot of the yard work or heavy work for them, so that they can then obviously go and do their training. And I think that's a little example of what you can think a bit creatively outside the box on that. But even childcare obligations, dog walking obligations, you got to do these things. Why not take the neighbor's kids this week or this weekend, or the neighbor's dog for a walk, and if they will reciprocate at another time? You're walking one dog, you've got to look after your own kids. Why not look after a couple more if it means that one night or one day you don't have to do it yourself? I think that is probably the most opportune way for you to start looking at that, is in that carpool kind of mentality. But of course, it's not going to be for everybody. Maybe you don't have a dog, maybe you don't have kids, maybe you don't have the money to pay for everybody. So I think that there are going to be some people out there that maybe can't do a lot of these things, but I do feel like you will be able to go about your life with this recovery mindset. Ask yourself the question, will I be aiding or hindering my recovery with what I do next? And if you can't do anything, let me know in the comments, because I'll help you out for free. I'll help you out if you think that you can't aid your recovery by making some decisions. Happy to have a free 15-minute consultation, and we can see what we can do. But just to finish this podcast or YouTube, I am going to read you off my top 5 tips to be lazier. So you can find these on my website if you wanted to read over the blog, read some of this, and find the 5 tips that I'm going to go through. That's coachpav.com/blog. And also join our new community.coachpav.com. Link also on the website. where we will discuss these kind of things, and you'll be able to post a lot of questions and see get some community support on your stuff. And who knows, maybe you will find someone that lives local to you who will share dog walking, child responsibilities, or even help you out with some gardening. So my top 5 tips to be lazy: opt out of non-essential physical exertion. That's number 1. Number 2 is get your 7 to 8 hours of daily sleep. Can't stress how highly I rate that one. Number 3, elevate your feet. Definitely do that when having a nap at work is not an option. Number 4, outsource physical tasks wherever possible. Find someone else to do it. And number 5, question your decisions. Develop the recovery mindset. Can't even begin to tell you how important and how much you will improve as a cyclist when you start to implement that mindset. So thank you for either watching or listening, or as ever, let me know in the comments what you thought. Do you like the new format? Do you want me back in front of my screen where I have been before? Definitely make sure you subscribe, because I've got loads of cool content coming up. And yeah, if you've liked it, share with your friends as well. It'd be fantastic. Again, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I hope you've had as much fun listening as I have recording it. And like I say, reach out if you have any troubles, questions, or challenges. My name is Coach Pav. Have a fantastic day.